I typically cover older games from the late 90s and early 2000s, which I think could be easy to attribute to something like nostalgia. I don't know if that's the case, however you feel about it, I personally try hard not to fall into a mindset that justifies something as good simply because it comes from a time period I relate to. Still, there are things defined by their era that can be worth celebrating. I've played many Nintendo 64 and PlayStation titles in my life, but I don't know if any of them have felt as excessively late 90s as Gungage. This third-person shooter from Konami's Tokyo studio features 4 ridiculously named characters with exotic yet somewhat functional fashion, as well as an overall vibe that feels close to a space western. The over-the-top music from famed Castlevania composer Michiru Yamane helps top it all off. The premise is simple, with an empire opening a portal to another world, which unleashes beasts upon Earth. Nevertheless, there is a lot of potential in the perspectives in which you see it from. The 4 playable characters all aim to close the portal, but have distinct backgrounds. Wakel Skade is the standard adventurer type, Card Burdish is a Empire soldier turned traitor, Steer Harkabis is a member of the resistance against the Empire, and lastly, Divan Fang is a experimental super soldier sent to fight beasts as a test of strength. This potential isn't delivered on. Aside from a few bits of text, there's not much substance to the plot, or even worse, there were times I didn't understand the motivation of a character until halfway through their stories. Maybe there's more information in the manual, but I have the PAL release and there's no English in here for some reason. So, yeah. Although their individual plots don't necessarily pay off, they all have a unique loadout that makes their own campaigns feel somewhat distinct. Wakel has a standard burst shot, as well as some defensive capabilities. Card is a big, slow, and beefy dude equipped with heavy weaponry. Steer is fast, touting a rapid-fire machine gun, along with some crowd-clearing skills. Finally, there's D, who actually plays a lot like Wakel, however, replaces the defensive skills with some more powerful elemental attacks. Each character's traits means different approaches can be taken to combating foes. That being said, most of the time, you'll simply hold the fire button, while the automatic lock-on takes control. Console shooters from the 90s and early 2000s are strange beasts. Free aim was not something easily obtainable on a D-pad. The Nintendo 64 benefited from an analog stick, still even that always didn't work out great. Aiming is almost entirely automated, which puts more of an emphasis on using the correct weapons together with effectively moving to avoid damage. It's easier said than done. The movement as well as aiming are locked together as both are controlled via the D-pad. However, strafing using the shoulder buttons frees up the pad for aiming the cursor laterally. When an enemy is near the reticule, the lock-on takes control. It allows the player to move freely while still firing at a foe within sight. Since the standard weapon shots have no ammo count, there's very little concern about precision here. Don't even try to use the manual aim, you can't move and there's no finesse here. It's just a bad idea. Where most of the challenge comes from is in evading projectiles. Each one is slow as well as easy to read, but often come in odd, inaccurate clusters in your general direction. When mixing in multiple enemies, firing rates, bullet types, as well as incoming fire from off-screen, it becomes surprisingly deadly. We're not talking bullet hell here though, so it's not that difficult. While off-screen shots are cheap, they're so inaccurate they can often be unintentionally avoided as long as you continue to move. That's not to say moving feels great either though. Things are mostly fine when enemies are in front, turning around or moving backwards to pick up an item is awkwardly slow. There's no official quick turnaround feature here, however, there is a side dodge that has a faster turn radius, which actually works well most of the time. Yet in narrow stages like this, with insta-death falls, it can't be relied on. It can be frustrating having that ability taken away. So what about Gungage's controls work? Yeah, from a modern perspective, nothing does. Though it largely fits for what the game is asking of you, most of the satisfaction comes from being able to master using these controls in a way that makes it feel surprisingly playable. That being said, today the title wouldn't hold without its aesthetics. Sure, you can barely turn around, but man, listen to that music while you do it. Everything is excessive, with most enemy death animations featuring explosions, flying body parts, or catching on fire. I say excessive because there is a good argument that it can be too much. Like, I would definitely understand the complaint that pacing-wise, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense to have this rockin' music at the same time as walking down an empty hallway. I, however, never want it to stop. Keep going, I want to live to this. Though over the top in its style, it comes short where it matters most. Each character is distinct in their build, yet the world around them is not. Everyone visits the same levels and fights the same bosses. The starting point of characters are often different. Nevertheless, after a couple of rooms, it's right back to familiar territory. With each playthrough only being an hour long, repeating content is not that offensive, but there could have been much more. I really like how Gungage looks, as well as the distinct playstyle of each character. Although I ragged on the controls, it's about what I expect from a console shooter from this era, so I don't think that much at least is the game's fault. However, the lack of content makes it feel like the world and characters go to waste. If you have 4 hours to spare, it's worth a playthrough, just don't expect anything amazing.